But now I want to introduce the artist, Margaret Leng, who is a legendary, who is sitting here under Margaret, bravo, who will play for us John Cage. And she was a wonderful friend of John Cage. And if Margaret doesn't mind, I would like to ask a few questions about her memories. Thank you for playing for us. It's really a treat and honor for us. Margaret, if you can say for us, maybe in the center, some of your memories with John Cage, because for sure you have a lot of memories. And maybe you can tell, how was John Cage? How do you remember him?
Yes, I knew John Cage for 11 years, from 1981 till his death in 1992. Shall I just tell the story of how I met John Cage?
We would love to hear that.
Okay, because people often ask me, how did you meet John Cage? And this is a nice story, so I'm going to share it with you. Actually, I include this story in my theater piece, Dragon Ladies Don't Weep.
Yes.
Yeah. So this goes all the way back to 1981. I was preparing a program to take on tour to Asia, where I would play the music of Western composers who were influenced by Asian culture and Asian aesthetics. I had a friend who was visiting at that time. Her name was Marion de Cruz, and she was a dancer from Malaysia. She started spontaneously to move and then to choreograph to the prepared piano music of John Cage, which I was practicing to take on this special concert. She said the prepared piano of John Cage reminded her of the gamelan, which is the Indonesian percussion orchestra. Before I knew it, we had put together a whole song and dance act, and I thought John Cage should see this. I didn't realize at that time how famous he was. Otherwise, I would not have dared to call him up. I just looked him up in the phone book. You could do that in those days. And I called him. And he was very surprised to hear from me. He said he was going to Europe, and that was that. So a few weeks later, I called him again. And he wasn't very nice to me this time. I think he just wanted to get rid of me. He says, I don't remember anything from before I went to Europe. And then he said, besides, I don't want to see something in somebody's living room. So that was the end of the discussion. And I thought, well, that's just too bad. However, fate intervened. I do believe in destiny. I met the dean of Juilliard on the Broadway bus, where I had been going to school, and got my doctorate. And the dean told me he was going to Bali on vacation. So I said, oh, I have a friend, an architect friend of mine, Mr. Lim, who lives in Malaysia but has a beautiful home in Bali, and I'm sure he'd love to meet you and show you around and entertain you royally and show you Bali from an insider's point of view. So I connected them to each other. And a few weeks later, Dean Waldrop came back from his vacation, and he contacted me, and he was absolutely thrilled with his time in Bali. He said, I'm so grateful to you for having introduced me to Mr. Lim. He said, if there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to ask. So I asked. I said, Dean Waldrop, please can I have a rehearsal studio to show John Cage some work? And lo and behold, he gave me the 1,000-seat Juilliard Theater. So I went home, and I called John Cage up again for the third time, and this time he couldn't say no. So we arranged to meet on July 28th, 1981, at 1 p.m. outside Juilliard. Marion and I were so excited and also very nervous. We performed for him, this solitary figure in this humongous space. And you know what? He loved what we did. He really, really liked our work. He even autographed the score of Bacchanal, which we had just performed for him. He autographed the score of Bacchanal to me and also dedicated it to me. I was so touched. You will hear Bacchanal later this evening because it's going to be on the program. A few days later, we received in the post a beautiful gift from John Cage. It was a poem, what he calls a mesostic, which is a kind of poem where the names of the subject, which in this case would be my name and Marion's name, would form the spine of the poem, and the text of the poem goes across. It was a very, very complimentary, positive, beautiful poem that he wrote about our work. And that was the beginning of a long and very meaningful relationship with John Cage for the next 11 years till his death in 1992. So that was 1981. In 1982 was his 70th birthday celebration at Symphony Space in New York. One morning, I got this phone call from Alan Miller, the director of Symphony Space. He said, John Cage is sitting right here, and he would like you and Marion to open the wall-to-wall 12-hour John Cage marathon with, celebrating his birthday. Unfortunately, Marion had already gone back to Malaysia, so it landed up being me playing different prepared piano works, and when I changed the preparation for the piano for different pieces, he would read from his writings. So that's how we spent the first 20 minutes of the opening to his marathon birthday celebration. I worked with John on the day before he died. I went to see him in his loft to discuss this big work that he had written for me that I was having some trouble with. And it was a really meaningful session because he made me realize that to be able to perform his late works, which this was, you have a great responsibility as co-creator. And what that responsibility entailed in these particular works, which were what he called indeterminate, where he gives you the basic material, but you have to actually make it into a coherent piece of music. He gives you the raw material, so that's why he makes you the co-creator. And in this particular case, what he made me realize I had to do was to know the material so thoroughly that at the moment of performance, I could spontaneously draw upon the reservoir of possibilities, and that would create a truly indeterminate performance. I was working on his music the next day at home, integrating ideas from the previous day at the hour of his death. Thank you.
Thank you for these touching memories. And I want to say one thing, as John Cage said, never be shy to ask. I also asked Margaret if she can play for us. I'm so honored she will actually play two pieces tonight with John Cage. And Margaret was in Poland in 2000. 2012, right, for the celebration of John Cage 100 years anniversary. It was a very special celebration. Exactly 100 years birthday. It was in Lublin, in the Koda, and when we were coming here to the center, we were a little chatting about that. It's also very nice to know about. So maybe, Margaret, you can say one word about it.
Lublin was amazing. It's the only place I know that devoted a whole year to the John Cage 100th birthday centenary celebrations. Other places did festivals and things, but no place except Lublin gave a whole year of John Cage's music. And I performed on toy piano, and I also had this wonderful Polish, I would call him a sound artist, Paweł Romanchuk, yeah, from Katowice. And he came and he performed with me on part of my program, and that was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me. So now I'm going to play you Dream by John Cage in my particular arrangement for piano and toy piano. It was originally written for toy piano in 1948. Many arrangements of it have been made for harp, for all kinds of possibilities. So I thought I'd add mine to the mix, which is for toy piano and piano.
Thank you very much. So let's enjoy The Dream by John Cage. Yes, so now that was a dream by John Cage. As you could hear, that was a really original arrangement because we could hear this on the piano, then on the toy piano. And Margaret Leng is called the queen of the toy piano, the most famous player of this instrument in the world. And then on two instruments. And that was, as Margaret mentioned, her arrangement of this composition. Now we are going to the second piece. It might be for you, some of you, very interesting to hear the unusual sounds from the piano. The piano will make the sounds, will sound like a percussion. Yes, and now we can demonstrate for you what we are actually doing in the instrument. We are preparing the instrument with the bolts and screws, putting them inside the strings, and then they change the sound of the instrument. So the sound will be very different. You even can't imagine that's a sound of the piano. And John Cage was the inventor of this idea to create a new instrument from piano. And the piece that we are going to hear, the next composition, it will be in the name of the Holocaust, which is called for the prepared piano. So we are putting the screws and bolts inside the strings, and we are preparing the instrument on particular size of the string, as notated in the score precisely. Really, the sound that John Cage wanted to have. Nowadays, of course, there's many composers using also the. Maybe we can show that's the second. You can see that's a different one.
These have loose washers on them. They make a horrific sound. It's
really different. Yes, different sound. Nowadays, it's of course some composers are still using the prepared pianos. It's like a different instruments. We can divide piano with the extended techniques when we just plug inside the string, and use some techniques that are above the traditional way of the playing of the instrument. But the second way is the preparation. So just wait a few more seconds. It's almost done. There are a few great pieces actually wrote for the prepared piano by John Cage. I can also mention that maybe some of you will be interested. They will be for selling also. Margaret has the DVDs also and CDs. You can see in the front doors, and you can also buy and maybe get autograph from Margaret. It's a great chance for us to have autograph for such an amazing artist. And I will also encourage you. I want to say. I was really touched and in tears when I was watching a recent movie about Margaret Leng, Twinkle Dammit, which is an amazing movie. You can also see her experience and in her life also with John Cage and George Crumb, the second very important composer in her life. We are almost done with the preparation, I think, right? Almost finished. So you're gonna hear some really unusual sounds. So. It's going to sound like percussion ensemble, but it's only one piano. We don't need to have so many instruments on the stage. We just need to have one simple piano, and then we can create this amazing soundscape with the harmonics and different unusual sounds. Those are the sounds that we are hearing now. That are from the piano. And okay, great. So we're almost done, right? We want to mention maybe one word, Margaret. Say a few. Okay, sure.
The history of this piece is interesting. It was composed very, very early in 1942, long before people knew there was a Holocaust going on, and the word wasn't even really in common, people didn't really even know the word back then. It was written, or at least was finished, on the day after Christmas, 1942. Now, John was always a very apolitical person, and I had asked him about the title of the piece, and he would never admit that it had anything to do with the events in Europe. He said it was a pun on the word, in the name of the Holy Ghost. In the name of the Holy Ghost, in the name of the Holocaust, okay? So the music will just have to speak for itself.
Thank you very much.